Today, we are going to break down a military paper that argues the very nature of war itself is changing. The core idea? That information is no longer just a support tool for war, it's becoming a primary weapon.
So, let's just dive right in with a big question. I want you to think for a second. What's the most powerful weapon out there today? Forget about stealth jets or tanks or fancy missiles for a moment. In a world that is totally interconnected with sensors, networks, and AI, what really gives a military the edge?
And there it is. The answer isn't a piece of hardware you can touch. It's a process. It's the ability to see what's happening, figure out what it means, and then act on it, faster and better than your opponent can. The military has a name for this, and it's the key to everything we're about to discuss: decision advantage.
All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with why speed is the new king of the battlefield. Then we'll get into the new doctrine for how to achieve it, the special team built to pull it off, the long-term plan to make it real, and finally, we'll tackle the huge ethical questions this all brings up.
Okay, first up, let's get to the heart of the problem that this whole new way of thinking is trying to solve. Why, all of a sudden, is decision-making the most valuable currency in warfare?
It really does all boil down to this one idea: decision advantage. And listen, this isn't just about being fast for the sake of being fast. It's about being coherent. It means your entire force, from the soldier on the ground to the commander in the HQ, can operate inside the enemy's reaction time. You're making moves before they've even finished processing your last one. You force them to be constantly on the back foot, always reacting, always one step behind.
Now, this whole strategy is built on three really critical assumptions about what the future looks like. First, enemies aren't just going to shoot at your tanks. They're going to attack everything from your command and control networks to the story you're telling the public. Second, artificial intelligence is going to speed up that whole decision-making cycle, what the military calls the OODA loop, to terrifying machine speeds. And third, cyberspace isn't just a sideshow anymore. It is a full-blown battlefield, just like land, sea, and air.
So the big question is, how do you actually get this advantage? And that brings us to the core of this whole paper, a brand new doctrine called Information Manoeuvre.
And this, right here, is a fundamental shift in thinking. Information maneuver is not about sending better emails to support the troops. It's about taking things like intelligence, networks, cyber attacks, electronic warfare, and even social media campaigns, and weaving them together into a single, unified weapons system designed to attack the enemy's mind, their ability to think and act.
So what's really cool is how this slide breaks down the logic. You take all these different specialized skills, your intel folks, your network gurus, your cyber warriors, and you smash them together, you integrate them. The goal isn't just to have these tools in your toolbox, but to use them in concert to produce four key effects: to understand your own world, to protect your own decision-making process, to disrupt the enemy's process, and to influence everyone from enemy commanders to the local population.
Ultimately, the end goal is to land very specific, targeted blows against an adversary's command and control systems. You could think of it as their military nervous system, their brain. And this slide just perfectly lays out those effects. They call them the 5 Ds. See, you're not always trying to just blow something up anymore. Maybe you want to delay their decision by feeding them a ton of false reports, or deny them access to a critical satellite link, or degrade their radar so they can't see your planes, or deceive them into moving their tanks to the wrong place. And yeah, if you have to, you can still physically destroy a command post. It's a much bigger playbook.
But look, a powerful idea is pretty useless if you don't have the right team to actually make it happen. So this paper proposes creating a totally new kind of military unit, one that's specifically built for this new age of warfare.
And here's its mission statement. This is for the proposed new unit, the Information Manoeuvre Brigade, or IMB. Just listen to those verbs: generate, defend, and exploit information advantage. That's active, aggressive language. This is not a passive support unit. This is a frontline warfighting unit.
And here's what it would look like. The whole point of the IMB is to break down those old, traditional walls between specialties. You're putting all the key players under one roof, reporting to one commander. You've got your network experts, your cyber hackers, your electronic warfare wizards, your intelligence analysts, and your psychological operations teams all in the same huddle, working on the same problem.
This little table gives you a fantastic real-world example of how it would work. Let's say a general wants to jam an enemy's air defense radar. Well, the electronic warfare company is responsible for actually doing the jamming, but the AMB commander is the one person who is ultimately accountable for the success of that entire mission. And, crucially, they have to consult with the artillery guys and the Air Force to make sure nobody's stepping on anyone else's toes. It brings order to what could be total chaos.
Now, this isn't just some academic theory or a good idea on a whiteboard. The paper actually lays out a concrete 15-year roadmap to make this whole thing a reality, and it has very specific, measurable goals.
Success isn't some vague concept here. It's defined by cold, hard numbers. For example, one of the key metrics is ensuring that your most critical command networks stay up and running more than 95% of the time. Now that sounds high, but get this. That's 95% uptime while you are under an active cyber or electronic attack. That is an incredibly high bar to clear.
And here's the other side of that coin, the offensive piece. The goal is to prove, with data, that these operations can slow an enemy's decision-making down by at least 25% during the most critical moments of a battle. In a fight that's all about speed, making your opponent 25% slower isn't just an inconvenience, it could be a knockout blow. This is what decision advantage actually looks like.
And the whole plan is broken down into 3 logical phases. The first 3 years are all about building a prototype unit and just testing these ideas out in war games and exercises. The next phase, years 3 to 7, is about rolling out these units across the force and really starting to bake in advanced AI tools. And the final phase is about getting to a mature, fully capable force that can do all of this at scale seamlessly.
Okay, so finally, let's zoom all the way out and look at the big picture. Because this massive shift in warfare isn't happening in a vacuum, and it raises some really profound and frankly difficult ethical questions about the future.
And make no mistake, this is a global race. The U.S. Army is already moving out with its own information advantage doctrine and building new specialized units. At the very same time, China's military strategy talks about future war as a systems confrontation, where the key to victory is paralyzing your opponent's entire information network. They call it intelligentization.
Now, this is a fascinating point. The paper argues that having strict ethical rules, especially for AI, isn't a weakness. They say it's actually a strategic advantage, a combat multiplier. And why is that? Because allies are going to be way more likely to trust you and fight alongside you if they know you're using AI accountably. It adds legitimacy to everything you do.
And to make that a reality, the doctrine proposes some very clear rules of the road. First, human commanders, not some algorithm, must always be legally and ethically on the hook for their decisions. Second, every single AI system has to be rigorously tested and certified to be safe and unbiased before it ever touches a battlefield. And third, you have to have super strict rules for tracking where your data comes from and how it's secured.
And all of this leaves us with one last, pretty provocative thought to chew on. As our machines get faster, smarter, and more autonomous, and as the human mind itself becomes both a tool and a target in warfare, what does it even mean to be in command anymore? It's a question these new doctrines are forcing all of us to confront.